The chairman of the state GOP. He is kind enough to join us live this evening from New York City. Chairman, welcome.
Liz, good to be with you again.
Okay, so you heard some interesting criticism of your new gubernatorial candidate. You're not your first choice, not even your second choice, actually, but now you have embraced him. Jay Jacobs said that Carl Paladino is, quote, tearing people apart and he is divisive. What do you say to that? Well,
let me just say my choice was, of course, the only candidate who got on at the ballot from the convention. That was Rick Lazio. But Carl Paladino clawed his way back onto the petition process, honed his message well, and won the primary overwhelmingly. He is a support of the grassroots of the Republican Party, and I support him wholeheartedly. And I've got to say, the reason why he feels so passionately about being governor of New York is that after seeing the last four budgets of the Spitzer-Patterson administration, where they increased spending, increased taxes, increased fees in each one of those budgets, even while the United States and New York was going into a deep recession in the state that is the most overtaxed state in the United States. That was just too much for him, and he is a real confirmed fiscal conservative, and he's determined not just to cap taxes, but to cut them and to bring back jobs to New York State. That's why he wants to be governor.
Okay, but he's made that quite clear on this program and his public statements. But what about the comments by the Democratic chairman that Paladino is divisive and that he is going to tear people apart? I mean, he forwarded racist and pornographic emails. He has said that Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver has likened him to the Antichrist. I mean, these are not sort of steady, run-of-the-mill comments to be making.
Liz, this is a man who's coming from being a private citizen who built a very successful business in a very difficult business environment here in New York State, and he is going from a private life at the start of this year into a very public life, and that's been a little bit rough. But if you heard the very classy statement that he made, victory statement that he made last night, you'll see this is a Carl Paladino who's really hitting the right notes, who's learning how to address the public issues and address them well. And as a real fiscal conservative, he's prepared to do the right thing as governor.
All right, but actually, you know, you haven't quite seen the last of Rick Lazio. He is the Conservative Party candidate, and as of today, I've spoken to the State Conservative Party Chairman Mike Long, and he says that he does not believe that Rick Lazio intends to get off the line and that he will be fighting through to November. Now, you said earlier today in a different interview that you would expect to see Rick Lazio stump for Paladino. I don't see that happening at this moment. What makes you say that's going to happen?
Well, look, different people can believe different things. Rick, at the moment, I'm sure is taking a few days to think about things, and we'll see what he tells us in a few days. But with respect to the question you raised, you know, Jay Jacobs, the chairman of the Democratic Party, made the point that his people are angry too about what's going on in Albany. The culture of corruption that's growing up there while the Democrats have controlled Albany completely. And Carl Paladino is addressing that very directly and is in the mood of both Democrats, Republicans, and independents here in New York. I think Jay Jacobs made Carl's point for him, and that is the people of this state are angry at Albany, and Carl correctly is not divisive. He's representing their point of view.
Chairman, have you spoken to Rick Lazio since last night?
No, I spoke to him extensively last night, and as I spoke to Carl Paladino last night, and also spoke to their supporters and staff for both men.
And you didn't get a feeling that Rick Lazio was going to be dropping off the conservative line?
That really didn't come up. It was more a question of his concession and how he was going to do it, and I thought that Rick did a very classy concession speech, just as I thought Carl Paladino did a very classy victory speech.
Okay, but now you say actually that people are uniting, and obviously you're quite strong in your support of Carl Paladino, but just today we've seen, and earlier in the show we saw, that neither Dan Donovan, the GOP candidate for AG, excuse me, the Staten Island DA, nor Harry Wilson, the state comptroller candidate for the Conservatives and the Republicans, want to endorse Carl Paladino. In fact, there have been reports that Harry Wilson might prefer to support Andrew Cuomo, the Democratic running mate. So how can you say there's unity there?
Liz, that's old hat from a column of several days ago. I've spoken to Harry about that, and he said that's not what he said. In fact, he is supportive of our gubernatorial candidates, and I think, of course, they are running as professionals. One as a professional prosecutor to be Attorney General, that's Dan Donovan, and one who is coming from private life, from the financial world, whose profession has been in the financial world and restructuring companies. In fact, he restructured GM as a Republican who served in the Obama administration. These people, each of them, they are professionals, and their positions by definition are independent.
Okay.
And so they are going to run on the issues that relate to the positions that they're campaigning for.
I see. But do you expect them to be endorsing Carl Palladino? I mean, when we saw earlier in the show Harry Wilson say that he's going to be running an independent campaign, I didn't hear him say anything supportive of Carl Palladino, not whatsoever.
I think they will indeed be supporting the gubernatorial candidate of their party. Both of them will.
Okay, and also, you know, last night in terms of the results, it didn't necessarily go so well for either you or the Republican convention picked candidates. You saw Joe DiGuardi be selected by the voters. He was to take on Kirsten Gillibrand. You saw Jay Townsend be selected by the voters to take on Chuck Schumer. Neither of these candidates were put on the ballot by the convention. And in addition, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but your son did not win his three-way primary on Long Island in a congressional race.
You're making my point for me. What I have wanted from the start is, as you know, is a very open process. We had open screening process where anyone could be screened, and we had a number of different regional screenings where the delegates to the convention could get to see the potential candidates. And then we had an open convention, a wide open convention, where the delegates at the convention, not myself, not any of the so-called bosses, but it was the delegates at the convention who made their choice of candidates who they would put on the ballot. And as you know, it's a little bit different than national conventions. The conventions are just the start of the process. And the convention decided, the delegates decided that for a number of the offices, they would have a number of candidates who would compete against each other in primaries. And in this election cycle, which is election cycle of the Tea Parties, this is the time to have an open process. And the result was that we had primaries, and we had several candidates, including Carl Palladino, who came back in, clawed their way back in through the petition process, got on the ballot, and several of them, in fact, ultimately were the candidate selection by the grassroots of the party in the primary process. That is a good open process.
I'm sorry, just very quickly in parting, because we're out of time here, but you do not believe that you will be challenged for your leadership, because there's been some talk that perhaps you might.
There's always talk of that, but we have got a lot of work to do, not just because we started from scratch about a year ago to rebuild the state party as an institution that can really stand up as a party to the special interests in Albany. And we intend to keep doing that by the candidates who've been selected here, by the grassroots of the party, and once they're in office, by having the party support them as an institution.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Chairman Ed Cox, the GOP chairman, for